This is Algebra 2. We are on Lesson 2-3. This is Mr. Sindel, and I am at home right now because Riley is sick. So I'm also whispering, kind of whispering, because he's taking a nap right now. And I might have to pause this because he might wake up. So here's a warm-up. It is on the whiteboard, so go ahead and copy down these problems and then do them. This is polynomial addition, polynomial subtraction. See if you remember how to do this. Announcement before you pause the video, we have a binder check tomorrow, so make sure that your binders are in perfect order. I'm just going to collect those at the beginning of class tomorrow. Alright, go ahead and pause the video now and I'll come back and show you how to do these problems. Alright, so you have unpaused the video now, and I should move this a little bit over here. How do I do this? Well, I need to add 4x and this negative 7, so that's going to be a negative 3x. And then I need to add this negative 1 with this 5, and that is a positive 4. So the answer for number 1 is negative 3x plus 4. I do prefer having the variable first and then the constant. Number 2, how do I do this? This one is a little bit tricky because you needed to distribute this negative into each of these terms. Because really this isn't a negative, it's really kind of a negative 1. So you're multiplying negative 1 to each of these, and then it turns into an addition problem. So when I change that, this is now going to be a plus, and these are going to be turned into a positive 10 and a positive 6x. After doing that, this problem is a lot easier. It's just like problem 1, just doing addition. 11 plus 10 is 21, and I have a negative 17x and a positive 6x, so this is going to be a minus 11x, and I do prefer writing my x first, so it's going to be a negative 11x plus 21. There is my final answer, although if you put this, I can't say that it's mathematically incorrect. It's just not enough form that I like, and I'm not going to take off points for that ever. So there's the answer. And if I make any mistakes, please catch those mistakes and tell me about them tomorrow, and you will get the extra credit point and you will get the XP for that. Alright, that concludes the warm-up. You can put away whiteboards unless you want to hold on to them for the work that you're going to be doing on Khan Academy, because we're going to have 2 assignments. Just letting you know where we're at. So today I'm talking about lesson 2-3, adding and subtracting complex numbers. So we have these 2 homework assignments. This first homework assignment you might need a whiteboard for, because it's kind of like the same work that we just did for the warm-up. So if you could do this in your head, you probably don't need whiteboards. If you couldn't do this in your head, you will need whiteboards. And then graphically add and subtract numbers. That will be a little bit more confusing, and whiteboards are less useful in this one. So let's go over the notes. So you should have these notes in front of you. Go ahead and wave them. No, I'm just kidding. You don't need to. I know that you have them. And if not, they're on Google Classroom also. All right, so when adding and subtracting complex numbers, that's our starred note. You have to add the reals and add the imaginaries separately. It's very similar to how we add and subtract polynomials. We add the x's and we add the numbers separately. They're kind of like in their own category. So I think the best way to do this is just to look at 2 examples really quick. I'm going to add the numbers, add the constants, and then add the real part, and then I'm going to add the imaginary part. So here's the real part. The real part I'm going to do underlined in blue. So 88 plus a negative 71, which means I'm doing 88 minus 71, and that's going to be 17. I think that's 17, yep, 17. Okay, and then in orange, I'm going to circle my imaginary parts. I'm circling that negative also because it is part of that imaginary part. I have to add a 7i with a negative 10i. So 7 minus 10 is negative 3, so it's going to be minus 3i. And there's my final answer. I'll box it. It is that easy. Just make sure you're adding the reals with the reals, imaginaries with the imaginaries. Keep them separate, just like our polynomial addition and subtraction from the warm-up. All right, example 2. Again, we have reals, and we have imaginaries and imaginaries. So here's my, I got some lag again, imaginary and imaginary. And be careful about that negative. You should know how to do this problem. I want you to pause the video right now and then work on example 2 and then play the video once you're ready to check your answer. So you've unpaused me now. I'm going to work through this a little bit quicker. 31 minus a negative. This is now a positive 11. And this is a positive 6i. So 31 plus 11 is going to be 42, and then I'm going to have negative 12 plus 6i is a negative 6i. Final answer, box it. I think it lags so much because of the recording of the video. I think I might have mentioned that at an earlier class. So that's one homework assignment. In those two examples, that's the type of homework that you'll see. You'll see addition and subtraction with these complex numbers. And if for any reason there isn't a real number, then you don't need to add anything to it. It's just that the real number that was just left there. So I'm just trying to say that if there wasn't an 11 right here, then you don't have to worry about adding 31 with anything. Just worry about your imaginary parts. Let's look at example 3, 4, and then we'll have 5 and 6 on the back. For example 3 and 4, we're going to plot them on the same graph. So how do I do addition on a graph? Addition on a graph, I'm doing the same thing that I did in example 1 and in example 2, but the key part here is they don't tell you exactly what the number is. You have to get that information by yourself. So I'm going to figure out what the position of Z1 is. Z1, I'm going to do in blue, is 3 plus 2i. 3 plus 2i. I have to get that information by itself because I went 3 in the real direction and I went up 2 in the imaginary direction. For this red Z2 number, that's minus 6 in the real, so this is going to be minus 6 in the real, and I went up 3 in the imaginary, so plus 3i. By getting this information first, it makes it a lot easier to add them. So by adding them, I'm going to do this out here in green. I'm going to have to add the real part, negative 6 and 3. That's going to turn into a negative 3. So I'm going to plot negative 3, and then 3i and 2i adds to a 5i, so plus 5i. When I add them together, this is the number I get, and then I'll go ahead and graph him. So negative 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I go 5 in the imaginary, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This point right here, there's my negative 3 plus 5i. So that is Z1 plus Z2. I can either label it like this, or I could label it like Z1 plus Z2. And I'll do a little slashes so you know that they're Z's. Either way of labeling it is fine. On Khan Academy, you just literally drag a point. You don't need to label it. All right. This one I am going to do in orange. So Z1 minus Z2. So now I'm doing 3 minus a negative 6. And maybe it's best to actually write this one down to see what happens. So this one is going to be 3 plus 2i. And if you can already see this in your head because you're that fast, that's okay. I just still want to write it down for your notes just in case in maybe like 2 months from now you forget what's going on. You'll still be able to look back and see what's going on. So I'm doing this minus the red, which was, I hate the letter, minus 6, negative 6 plus 3i. And again, I'm going to distribute this negative into each of these terms. So this becomes a positive, and a negative. All right, now I just add them straight through. 3 plus 6 is a 9. 2 minus a 3 is a negative 1i, or just a negative I. So now I graph that. 9 minus I come out 9 in the real, I go minus 1 in the imaginary. There it is. This is Z1 minus Z2. Z1 minus Z2. Minus Z2. I do a little slash to let you know it's a Z and not a 2. Alright, there's example 3 and example 4. What I want you to do is flip over the paper and try example 5 and example 6 by yourself. So pause the video now. Alright, you've unpaused the video. Let's go over how to do these. Really quickly, Z3 is negative 4 plus I. Z4, this red one, is 5 minus 3i. So when I subtract these, I'm going to get first Z3, so negative 4 plus I. You should be writing out all of your work just to make sure you're not making a mistake. And then I'm going to do this one in green, so this one is going to be minus the 5 minus 3i. 5 minus 3i. If I'm going too slow, you can always play me at times 1.5 or times 2 speed. I will not be offended at all, as long as you're understanding the material. So this is now going to be a positive, a negative, and a positive, distributing the negative. So I have a negative 4 and negative 5, that's a negative 9, and a positive I and a positive 3i, that's a positive 4i. So negative 9 plus 4i is right there. There is Z3 minus Z4. Alright, let's plot this other one. So now I'm doing the red first. I'm doing Z4 first. So 5 minus 3i. That thing is going to subtract our blue function, our blue point, I should say, our blue complex number, which is negative 4 plus I. Again, I'm going to distribute that negative. That's going to be positive, positive, negative. And when I do that, I'm going to get 5 plus 4, which is 9. I'm going to get negative 3 plus a negative 1, which is a negative 4. And you can see that it's really similar to this one. When I flip the order, you really are just multiplying this whole thing by negative 1. So that's a way to check your work. Negative 1 times 9 is positive 9. Negative 1 times 4i is a negative 4i. And multiplying by negative 1 on here is the equivalent of rotating 180 degrees. And we'll be learning about that a lot more in pre-calculus. But multiplying by negative 1 is rotating 180 degrees around the origin, which means if I rotate it, it should be somewhere down here. Let's see. 9 minus 4i, 9, and then go 4i. There it is. This is Z4 minus Z3. And that concludes the notes. So the other half of the homework assignment is graphing points like this. So go ahead and write your summaries, and then after finishing your summaries, please work on Khan Academy.